Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I'm your host, Stephen Lomer, and my guest this week is Caroline Fairless. Caroline, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for coming all this way. You people don't realize how far these authors come. I mean, I don't know if there are any authors in Massachusetts. I'm not entirely convinced there are. There are so many in New Hampshire. There are so many in Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Where are my Massachusetts people? All these authors are slogging their way 2 hours, 3 hours, but I'm thankful that you did.
Well, it's really fun to be here.
Good.
Yes,
Good.
Even though we almost did go to Saugus.
You did, yes. This is the second time. People, do not go to Saugus, Massachusetts. There is a location in Saugus where people think we are filming. We are not filming there. We are filming right here. But I'm not telling you where because this is actually a secret location. So let's talk about how, you know what, before we talk about anything else, what I found most fascinating about you is that you served as an ordained minister for 25 years.
Did I tell you that?
You sent me that. I mean, that was the research that I did.
Yes, I did.
Exhaustive research. How did that happen? Well, first of all, what years are we talking?
1989.
Okay.
To the present. I actually am still an ordained minister, but I haven't set foot in a church for an embarrassingly long time.
Okay. Now, how did you come to that, or how did that come to you?
I never considered ordained ministry as a possibility for me. I was engaged to be married in San Francisco.
Okay.
In 1985.
Okay.
And my husband-to-be shot and killed himself.
Wow.
And I found out during that post-suicide days in the house that there were guns all over the house. And I felt very unsafe.
And you didn't know there were guns all over the house?
I did not know there were guns all over the house. I'm not a person who goes looking for guns.
But you know, people stumble across all kinds of weird things doing the laundry or exploring.
True, but I did not find a single gun, and then there were quite a few.
My goodness.
And so for several months I felt really unsafe. And one day I was walking in Berkeley across the bay from San Francisco and coming home from the farmer's market, and I walked by a sign that said Church Divinity School of the Pacific.
Okay.
That's the Episcopal Seminary in Berkeley. There are 8 seminaries there in Berkeley. They call it Holy Hill. I'm not a particularly...
I like that.
I'm not a particularly overtly religious person.
Okay.
But I looked at that sign and I said, I need to go in there. And I did, and I talked to the receptionist, and she said, well, are you here to start school, the program to be ordained? And I said, I don't know. And then little by little, I decided that this was probably a good idea. People who are... I have a book called Confessions of a Fake Priest, which is how I always thought of myself, because I had no real church call or no real idea in my mind that this was a good idea. So, but I went, and I was kept safe. That's true. And actually, I did very well in the seminary, and was a reasonably decent ordained person for all the time that I worked. I retired I can't remember, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago I retired.
Okay.
And so that was probably the last time that I've been in a church.
I see.
Except for one funeral.
Okay, fair enough. Sure, that's often what draws us into churches.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I just had enough. And I was working on some pieces of writing that, instead of bringing me closer into that circle, put me at the margins of the margins of the margins of the margins, and then outside.
That's really far out.
It's pretty far out.
That's definitely far out.
Even when I was at the margins of the margins, probably.
Now, hindsight is always 20/20, and it's hard to speculate. But where do you think your life would have taken you had your husband's suicide not come into your your life. Do you think any of this, do you think you still would have wound up?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it. The only time I ever really knew what I wanted to be when I grew up was when I was little.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Really?
And play for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, why on earth would you want to play for the Pirates?
I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
That'll do it.
All right.
And I knew all the Pirates. My grandfather used to sneak me out of school to go to the ball games.
I already like your grandfather.
Oh,
Okay.
He was wonderful. And he had season seats behind the first base dugout. And I knew them all. You know, in those years, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not on the young side of my life anymore, but it was the really good Pittsburgh Pirate era with Dale Long at first base and Dick Grote at shortstop and Bill Mazeroski, who hit the 10th inning home run in the World Series against the Yankees' 7th game. I was there at that game.
Oh, wow.
Pittsburgh was inundated with confetti. It was just so exciting.
And thanks for beating the Yankees, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for that. So you felt like you could break that gender barrier? You felt like you would be the first female baseball player, professional baseball player for the Pittsburgh Pirates?
I didn't know when I was little that there was a gender barrier.
Oh, I see.
I just figured they hadn't found any girls good enough yet.
Aha, and you were going to be that girl.
I was going to be that girl.
Wow. Do you still have a great love for the Pittsburgh Pirates?
I have a great love for all of baseball.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Being in New Hampshire, New England, you know, the loyalty has changed a little bit.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
Baseball is my heart.
Wow. All right. See, we're learning things, people. We are learning things. We need to step away for a moment. We will be right back with Caroline Fairless. Welcome back to Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I'm here with Caroline Fairless, and look, something has materialized between us. What could this possibly be? It looks like some sort of fine literature that was sculpted with words. So I'm just gonna go right for the gimmick and say, Caroline Fairless, tell me about your damn book.
The title of the book is The God Presumption.
Okay.
It took me 3 years to write it.
Wow.
I just want to back up a little bit. And for
Sure.
the first 2.5 of those years, I called it my big fat sloppy book. And the reason I called it my big fat sloppy book was that I had no structure for it. I couldn't find, it's not a linear entity, so I couldn't find a structure for it. And then finally I did.
Okay.
So the structure is, I think of it as a braid, like with 3 strands, 3
Okay.
threads of a braid, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they weave in and out and in and out. So I think I'm probably not a very linear person, which is why this is not a terrifically linear book.
Okay.
But the 3 threads do carry the content of the book. And the first thread has to do with my clear assuredness that this creation is sacred, whether or not there's a belief in a divine authority, or whether or not there's an absolute not belief in a divine authority. We call that God.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter whether a believer or non-believer. The world is sacred. The creation is sacred, and that means all of it. It means the waters and the mountains and the air and the trees and the earth and the creatures, the frogs, bears, deer, reptiles, all of it is sacred, and we don't require any God of Scripture to have that be so. So that's really the first thread that I wanted to talk about. The second thread is critical, and it has everything to do with the title of the book. What it does is take some of the very seminal, deeply formative scriptural stories and connect them, lift up the correspondences between those stories, which we ingest at a very, very early age, with what has unfolded in my case, since the Industrial Revolution and the Age of Enlightenment. What we've seen unfolded that is so vividly connected to this God of Scripture. And I'll just give a couple of examples. The first creation story is the 6-day creation story, and God rested on the 7th day. It was a hierarchical kind of creation with humans at the top.
Right.
And the humans at the top were given license by this scriptural God to rule and dominate and have dominion over and use whatever is available as our own resources. And so what I'm doing is connecting a story like that to what's unfolding today through those couple or 3 centuries or years since the Enlightenment, since Western European Enlightenment, really. That's kind of my starting point on this book.
Okay.
Another one would be, I call that the human-centered God, the one that puts humans at the top.
Sure.
Another one would be the second creation story, which is the story of the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. And Eve comes from Adam's rib, so already we have a kind of male-female hierarchy here, which obviously is playing out today. But we also have something else, which is the first couple. I call them the first couple. Eve is told not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The snake, the cursed snake, or soon to be cursed snake, convinces her that it's a good idea because it'll open her eyes and she'll come awake and she'll understand what's what. And so she takes a bite and Adam takes a bite, and God finds this out and expels them from the Garden of Eden, expels them really from their home to wander forever, to wander and wander. And the wandering is a disconnect from the homeland, right? So this wandering land out here doesn't really belong to anyone. There's no need to care for it. There's no connection to it because you're moving through it. Wendell Berry always talks about being rooted in the land. So when you're called out of the land or pushed out of your land, you're not rooted in your land any longer. So that's another one. And I guess in the book are probably 5 stories like that. The call of Abraham and Sarah out of their homeland to go colonize Canaan, right? This will sound very familiar. The people that God chose were called out of their home to go colonize the land of Canaan, which was obviously already inhabited. And it's not a great leap of the imagination to see that happening in this land. When the first Western Europeans came over, they were called settlers, which is just really a nicer name for colonizer.
Conqueror.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this land was inhabited, and what the colonizers did to the Native Americans is not what's taught in most elementary schools. We don't know these stories.
Sure.
So that's the second thread. And then the third piece is really my own, it's a little bit of, I guess I'd call it memoir. It's kind of my own waking up. And I have to admit some real humility about this, because in my vocation, made the assumption always that I was an awake person. But the things I learned in the research for this book were shocking to me and tragic to me and very, very humbling. Things that I didn't understand. And if you go, I just have a couple examples of what I didn't know. The Treaty of Laramie, Wyoming, Treaty of Laramie was made with the federal government and the Lakota Sioux. And it was a treaty in perpetuity that Sioux land would be forever. It lasted for 6 years.
Of course it did.
And General Custer came wandering through looking for gold, and he found it. And that was the treaty. That was the end of the treaty. And another one, the shrine to American democracy, right? Mount Rushmore.
Mm-hmm.
Those 4 presidents were the 4 presidents most committed to the push westward, no matter who was there. And it was the land grab for anyone who was Christian, male, and white, basically, could grab those lands, no matter who had them.
Manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny, exactly. I mean, I learned about manifest destiny when I was in 6th grade, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't think those 2 words ever crossed my mind again until maybe 3 years ago. And that's the humbling part is, a person, I mean, I can walk through my world and feel just like I'm conscious. I'm a conscious being. And discover that, in fact, I'm not quite so conscious as I thought. So that was the best part for me. So the third thread is really memoir. And so all of them, like I said, weave together like this. And there's some narrative, personal narrative, as well as the more didactic, I guess I'd call it, stuff.
Okay.
So that's it, really. The 3 threads. The world is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Scripture teaches us some pretty damaging things.
Yeah.
And there's another way to engage what is sacred. And then memoir.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay. All right. Good. The book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you said it's available at your website.
My website, www.restoringthewaters.com.
Restoringthewaters.com. Okay. So we come to a segment of the show called The Five. And the 5 is 5 standardized questions that we ask every author who comes on the show. Are you willing? Are you willing to do the 5?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Remember that a perfectly acceptable answer is pass.
Oh, I like that. Okay. That's good.
Okay. Question 1. If they published an author's yearbook today and you were in it, what would you be voted most likely to do?
Seclude myself and go out into the woods and try to discern what's coming next.
All right. That we've never had that one before. We've never had that as an answer. Now this suddenly becomes a touchy question from our conversation earlier, but which 4 faces would appear on your author's Mount Rushmore? So, no, but this is good. We replace those awful people on Mount Rushmore with your 4 favorite authors.
Well, I have to do a little caveat there. I wouldn't carve a mountain.
Okay, fair enough.
But given that,
we could just Photoshop them onto Mount Rushmore. That way we don't have to carve anything.
Yeah. My favorite would be, there's a young woman writer. I think she's just starting out. She's hysterically funny. She's a graphic. She's written a graphic memoir, and it's called Hyperbole and a Half. And I have to say, if you're going to buy only one book this year, buy hers. It's really, really funny, and she deserves to be noticed. She's pioneering a style of writing that is text and graphic images. She's a great cartoon, very simple drawing, and extremely funny text. You laugh out loud when you read her.
Who is she?
Her name is Allie Brosh.
Allie Brosh. Okay.
Brosch.
Okay.
The second would be Robin Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass.
Okay.
And she's a Potawatomi, from the Potawatomi tribe of the Lakes region in upstate New York. And her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, is just fabulous.
Okay.
The third one would probably be Wendell Berry. He writes fiction, but he also writes land-based books, and he's the only person I know of, I've never met him, who's been on the same piece of land for 3 generations, and I just think that's so important.
Wow.
And he writes about that.
Oh.
And he writes about the people of Kentucky who have been there for generations and generations, and the kind of indigenous respect they have for the land.
Okay.
And then the fourth one, I think, would be Joy Harjo, who is a poet and a writer. And she's part Native American, and she's a brilliant poet. Can I have 5?
Sure. Yeah,
No,
you can.
no,
But
that's all right. I won't.
we have rules.
We have rules. Yeah.
So the 4 is your cutoff, but those are 4
Okay.
good ones.
Okay.
Question 3: what's something about you that almost nobody knows?
Almost nobody knows. Well, almost nobody knows that I jumped out of an airplane with a parachute on my 50th birthday.
Did you really?
Yes, I did, and the point of it was to symbolically challenge everything that frightened me at the age of 50.
Okay.
And the only thing that frightens me now is jumping out of an airplane. That's the truth. It was not a great experience.
Okay, fair enough.
But I did it, so I don't talk about that too much.
Okay.
Not too many people know about that.
Okay, well now they do, because
Now they do.
Now it's going over the airwaves. Question 4: what is your favorite curse word, and in what phrase would you be most likely to use it? This is my favorite question, by far.
So how clean do I have to be?
You can be as dirty as you like.
I will share the first 2 words I ever learned, and I learned them from my grandmother,
Okay.
who was at the time in her 60s, late 60s.
Uh-huh.
And it was, oh shit. She tripped over a fireplace log, and that was it. Those were the first 2 words I ever said. And I use them probably more than any other curse word. I do have others in my vocabulary. But
Certainly.
That's the most used. Yeah.
Oh shit. All right, I like it. That's great. And finally, question 5: if the world ended right after this video, what final message would you want to convey to your fans?
I think I'd say something like, say what you need to say and then be quiet.
That's excellent.
Right?
That's really good. Yes, we've had a lot of interesting answers to that question, but I like that. I like that very much. Yes, that's really excellent. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I would like to thank my guest, Caroline Fairless, for being here. The book is The God Presumption. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and plug your website one more time.
www.restoringthewaters.com.
Get a hold of it.
Oh,
and,
yeah. I'd love to see you on that website.
Yes, let's fix this, people. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.